Let's go to Mike in Manchester. Mike, good evening.
Hello, yeah. Somebody presented herself at the front door while I was painting the living room ceiling. She said she was from a charity selling stuff, and I bought something from her, and I wrote a cheque for 14 quid. The reason I used a cheque was because I thought, I'll check this out. I'm not 100% convinced, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. It's for a charity. And I thought, it's going to take 3 days for a cheque to clear. I'll check her out and then I'll ring the bank tomorrow when I know that she's legitimate. I rang the bank the following day and they said the cheque's already gone through. And she said it's for the value of £400. Now, as you remember, I wrote the cheque for £14. I explained to her what I've just explained to you, and she says, well, actually, I brought the cheque up on the screen. She says, I can see immediately it's been forged. There are several characteristics about it that tells me it's a forgery. She says, I'll pass this on to the fraud department. Just as an aside, Daniel, it has been reported to the police and they're carrying it through, but they won't be able to refund the money, obviously. So the fraud department got back in touch with me and said, yes, the cheque was fraud and it's been presented. We tried to get the money back from the person's bank account, but there's no money in it. We are not duty-bound to pay you back the £400 that you've been swindled out of. And my point being, Daniel, is that they won't tell me what I've done wrong. So my point being is, well, if you won't tell me what I did wrong, how can I avoid this again in the future? And surely, because you've accepted it was a forged cheque at first sight.
Yeah. So, Mike, what's your question for me?
Pay me back. That's it.
Right. So, thank you, Mike. And it sounds like you've done nothing wrong at all, and some fraudster took advantage of you. And you've just been scammed. Right. Do you want the good news or the good news?
Well, I'm not sure what good news sounds like, so try it on.
All right. The good news is I like you. Great call. The even better news is the bank is talking baloney.
Right.
A bank has a duty to reimburse you when there's been fraud unless you failed to take reasonable steps to protect yourself from fraud. And writing a cheque and then having somebody amend it, which is what I assumed happened, isn't your fault. It's not like you handed somebody a cheque with a signed cheque and left them to fill in the amount. That would be a problem. But if you wrote £14 on there in writing it into the box, you haven't done anything wrong. They know that. They're just trying to get out of paying you the money. Ask them for a deadlock letter. That's a letter that says that's their final decision.
Write that down.
And if they won't give you one, you just have to wait 8 weeks, that's all. But once you've got the deadlock letter or you've waited 8 weeks, you can complain to the Financial Ombudsman, which regulates banks, and I promise you the Financial Ombudsman will find in your favour.
Thank you. Can we just make one quick point, Daniel? The lady that said the cheque was she immediately recognised it as a fraud. Says, "Well, how could she change it? Because I took all precautions, so it couldn't be changed." And she said, "What criminals are doing these days? They're printing their own cheques, and all they need is a sort code, an account name, and an account number, and they write their own cheques."
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you, Mike.
Neither did I. She said that's why cheque fraud is increasing. There's so many checks and balances on digital transfers these days that cheque fraud is increasing because of that.
Well, that's probably why this bank wanted to avoid paying you. If it's a big issue for the bank, they're just trying to get out of its own liabilities.
Yeah.
I said at the beginning of the show, insurance companies wind me up like anything else, like nothing else, but banks are pretty high up there as well.